How to double your salary, 11th part. We were talking about how I got stuck with public sector undertaking where doubling the salary every 5 years is next to impossible. Added to it with Indian GDP increasing at 4 to 5% rate, getting a 20% raise in the salary is almost like 4 times the national average. So that made things much tougher. So now, well, I was just calculating the difficulty of my reaching the target. I recalled one story I read in Chandamama as a children's magazine during my childhood. A king was fond of chess game. He kept a rule: whoever loses to the king, he'll be beheaded. And none of the citizens were willing to play with him the chess. Then he announced huge prize for the winner. One Brahmin comes to the king and proposes a weird thing that if the Brahmin wins the chess game, he has to give one grain in the first square of the chess board, and the second one he has to keep the double of the grains, that means 2 grains. The third one it goes to 4 grains. Then the fifth one will be, say, 8 grains. Like that, the grains will be double. The king thought it is a simple thing, and first thing is that he would not lose. It is his thinking. The king would not lose. Even if he loses, giving them the double the grains was not a big deal. That's what the king thought. Ultimately, the king loses the game, and when the ministers calculated the number of grains the king has to give, just about one square before the end of the thing, he runs out of all his grains of the kingdom. So the king learns his mistake, and the story ends. I remember this story because I was just thinking that if I have to double my salary every time, and would I end up in this kind of situation like the king? This is what my thinking was. And when nothing works, we will try to do something different and something big. So what I did was, I was in the oil sector, I first tried oil sector and petrochemicals. And unfortunately, at that time, both the refining and the petrochemicals were mostly held by the PSUs. So I didn't have a chance. Then they went for some private companies and some multinationals. But I could get a maximum salary of 20,000 per month, which was I would say is very high in those days. But my big problem was that how to get those jobs and what I'm going to do next. So what I did was I thought why not I expand my trials beyond India. So then I thought let me try in other oil sectors in the Middle East and other countries. No doubt, I got jobs in many countries, Singapore to start with, then Qatar, Oman, Saudi Arabia, Dubai, uh, Bahrain, to name a few. Uh, but before I could try and get those things, I thought it is better to improve my skills. So, improving special skills is always better. That you will be indispensable, or you will be a prized candidate to demand the industry. So, one of the things which I did was I started working on the technical fields and started reading the international journals and started attending international conferences and submitting papers, working on that. The other thing I started working was the computers. So before I conclude this episode, uh, I would say that other areas where I try to improve are management skills, because I realized to be in the top rung of corporations, one would require a management degree, which I obtained from the Jamal Bazaz Institute. Then communication is always very advantageous in technical and non-technical managerial jobs. So it was very useful for me. I spent about 20 years of my early life reading the Reader's Digest. The word power, which had 20 words in each month, added to about 5,000 to 6,000 words in my vocabulary. Of course, that was part of my program for GMAT and TOEFL when I was in IIT, so which helped me to get 99% in TOEFL. I never realized that these are all things which are going to help me in my career. So today, before we close this episode, I would share with you an interesting episode. It's one attended an interview at one of the places, and my interviewer was very much impressed. In fact, I met him in a conference, and he was a project director. He offered a job for me, and while we were discussing on that, he said, "Send me your CV." Then I told him that my CV is on your computer. So he was surprised, considering himself to be a computer expert. He said, "I checked my email today morning." Okay. Then he said, "How can your CV will be on my personal computer without my knowledge?" Uh, when I asked him to go into the search engine and type my name, my CV popped up, and he was really impressed. He said, "Whenever you want a job, you can just approach me." This episode I'm just sharing, so just tell you that if you are good in couple of fields like computers and management principles, then it will be always useful, and communication and English always advantageous. Uh, Before we close this chapter, I would summarize the suggested action items. 1. Keep a list of jobs you apply for. Keep a file and keep job advertisements and your resume. 3. Keep a record of target and performance salary required, because if you keep your target and your performance, every year, or maybe at least, whenever you have a raise, and you compare, then you know where exactly you lag in your target. The fourth one is develop the expertise required for high paying jobs. As I said, computers, simulations. The process simulations are the things which I learned a lot, which were useful for me. The other important issues which influence our life are, for meeting our target, are the parents' role, teacher's role, personal traits, and the the purpose of life. We should know the purpose of our education and our life, and it's just not to earn money, but to know uh, the power of money, which I call luck success, and also the limitation of money, which I call it happiness. So that brings us uh, to the next chapter, that is how to win the interviews. While you would get uh, my story going on continuously, though these chapters would give you a different aspects of the how I reached my goal and other things. So let's close at this point. Uh, the part 11 closes now. Before we, in the part 12, we take up the chapter 3, how to win the interviews. Thank you.